Tamitakiapi, Lampe Tuwashte. Welcome to the ICT Newscast. I'm Shirley Snavy. A rare typhoon roared into western Alaska October 11th. National correspondent Marionette Pember was in Anchorage for the convention of the Alaska Federation of Natives. Here's the story.
The aftermath of Typhoon Halong in western Alaska was on the minds of everyone at the annual Alaska Federation of Natives meeting in Anchorage. AFN is the largest statewide Native organization representing more than 140,000 Indigenous peoples. Two residents of western Alaska villages who were in town for the conference spoke to ICT about the impact of the storm on their families and communities.
Yes, we're okay now. There is a lineman there who's going to start repairing the power lines in the homes. So hopefully by tonight we should have power back on, which we haven't had for about 4 days now.
The flooding didn't affect us, but the high winds did knock out the power lines and the phone lines. So there was no communication. So it's taking time before the linemen can come in and cut the trees down. There was a tree on the power line that caught on fire. So they had to basically shut the whole town down.
Organizers at AFN hosted a blanket dance on the opening day of the conference, collecting $4,900 in addition to donations totaling around $1 million, according to AFN President Ben Malott. He said that the donations, however, would not be nearly enough to cover the costs of the devastation caused by the storm. Marionette Pember in Anchorage for ICT.
October 13th was a special day for Indigenous people across Turtle Island. Some call it Columbus Day, but many states use this day to honor the original inhabitants of this land and commemorate the harm done to the many children who experienced injustice in Indian boarding schools. Amelia Schaefer reports from South Dakota.
All of us suffer from generational trauma because of the boarding school, so I think it's good for all of us to be here.
On October 13th, Indigenous Peoples Day, over 270 community members in Rapid City bundled together in 37-degree temperatures to honor those who died at the Rapid City Indian Boarding School. The walk was led by youth from the Tichangu Youth Council and Rapid City Student School Board.
Whenever I looked at the first name on top of my stack that I had, it was someone from home. It was someone from the Rosebud Sioux tribe. So that, I don't know, I just felt it in my heart, like this is probably somebody I'm related to, and they had to go through that. I was thinking of my relatives. We have elders who are still here or that have passed on that had to go through the boarding schools, and we have our younger relatives that aren't here with us today. And you just have to, while walking, those thoughts, they're with you that whole way. It's a lot to take in, a lot to think about.
In July, Remembering the Children Executive Director Amy Sazu uncovered 4 additional names of children who died while attending the boarding school. This year, those 4 children, among the other 51, were honored.
And that's something that we think is probably always going to happen. So we did find 4 more names of children, and I found their names in letters from the superintendent to the Commissioner of Indian Affairs. I actually found that documentation from the guys that did the mitigation work for the Oyate Health Center. They shared all of their research materials, and I literally researched all of read every single page. It breaks your heart. It hurts your stomach. We knew that it wasn't conducive to how young people should be treated in their formative years.
Guests at the walk included recently freed American Indian Movement activist Leonard Peltier.
I also went through a boarding school here, and 10 years old, came close to dying, but I made it. And I stayed involved throughout my life after that. And I'm going to stay involved till I die.
And for the first time ever, the walk finished at the site of the completed Rapid City Indian Boarding School Memorial. The site features a statue of a Lakota family surrounding a child who attended boarding school, restroom facilities, and a memorial walk.
To me, it equals healing when we do these events. It's healing for myself, it's healing for our elders and our children. That historical trauma, we all carry that in our DNA. So to get that healing though going is what matters most to me now.
The walk itself is an opportunity for unity, healing, and collaboration.
It brings together different sectors, different people in our community who might not otherwise be walking the streets together. That's where the change is. That's where that's just where the momentum is. And so it's always good to be among people, the community, and to see people visiting and talking to each other, looking up at the plaza. I've been watching, we have Leonard Peltier here with U City Council. We have just looking at the different fractions of community that we have here. It's beautiful to see everybody together. It's just beautiful. So I'm really appreciative of all the community support.
Who would have thought that this would be here, years ago? So it's a great way to commemorate our relatives and remember what happened to them, and also again to have some healing through it all.
The memorial site is not yet open to the public. For ICT from Oceti-Sakowin Homelands, I'm Amelia Schaefer.
Each year, the Chief Standing Bear Project awards a prize for courage. Standing Bear was a leader of the Ponca tribe. In 1879, he became the first Native American to be recognized as a person in federal court. This year's award recipient is the former Interior Department Secretary, Deb Haaland. I caught up with her the morning before the award ceremony in Lincoln, Nebraska. I asked her what the award meant to her.
It's a tremendous honor. I'm incredibly humbled, at the idea that they would choose me for this award. In 2019, I was present at the U.S. Capitol when they unveiled the statue of Chief Standing Bear, and some members of the tribal leadership and other members of the tribe were there. Nebraska is defined by having this statue in the U.S. Capitol, right? Every American and people from around the world have an opportunity to see that statue and understand what a pivotal moment in history that was for Native American people. The message that Chief Standing Bear wanted everyone to know was that Native Americans were human beings, and we had every right, like every other human being in this country. And so I shudder to think where we would be without a turning point in history that was so important, I guess.
I want to thank you for all that you did for Native Americans under the Biden administration. Your work around lands and around the boarding schools were just really a game changer for all of us, I believe.
Thank you. It's my honor. And of course, I was, nobody ever does anything alone. I had a wonderful team. We had a wonderful team in the Department of the Interior. Many Indigenous people who have dedicated their careers to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Bureau of Land Management, all the bureaus and offices. We didn't have Native Americans just in Indian Affairs. They were department-wide and federal government-wide. My mother, in fact, was a federal employee at the BIA for 25 years. So I'm just following the footsteps of so many Native folks who have dedicated their lives and careers to moving Indian country forward.
And now you're running for governor in your home state of New Mexico, and it sounds like things are going very well.
It's a lot, it takes a lot of time, but it's an honor for me to run. I love talking to people from various parts of our beautiful state. It's wonderful to see so many beautiful landscapes. There's a lot to fight for. Especially right now in this political climate when things are so divisive, right? We have a president who wants to divide people. He wants to destroy our democracy. And I mean, Native Americans were some of the oldest democracies in the world, Indigenous people. And so I feel, that's my charge. I'm going to fight for New Mexicans and make sure that we can have a state that holds promise for our future generations. In this era of climate change, we know that especially in the high desert Southwest, water is always an issue. And so yes, water is a precious natural resource. We can't waste a drop. We have to be careful with the water that we have. And tribes recognize this. The whole entire state of New Mexico recognizes this. So I think that's, our natural resources are always areas where we can work together, where we can collaborate, where we can make sure that tribes have a seat at the table. When I was Secretary of the Interior, we entered into 400 co-stewardship agreements with tribes across the country to manage our public lands, to help steward our public lands.
When you were Secretary of the Interior, the boarding school issue was really something that you focused on a lot. And the apology from President Biden was just a really symbolic gesture, I think, for a lot of people. And I know you as well as me, and I don't know any other Native American that isn't impacted somehow through that boarding school era, whether it's a parent or a grandparent, or in my case, parent, grandparent, and great-grandparent that were sent to boarding schools. So we've got a long history of that kind of, shall we say, oppression. Where do we go from here in healing?
The federal government has never formally apologized for what happened until today. I formally apologize as President of the United States of America.
The apology was really an amazing and appreciated step that President Biden took. It was on our list of recommendations on how we move forward. We had a list of recommendations in our second report. We thought these were things that we know would help us to heal. We also listed on there Indigenous language revitalization. Native languages aren't just a way to communicate verbally, right? They include, those languages include history and geography, and they mark time in a year, and there's so many important things about our culture that is intertwined with our languages. Another recommendation that was given in the report was to move, there was a lot of land that was taken to build Indian schools. A lot of those lands are not in trust for tribes. And so we should, one of the recommendations was to move all of those lands back into tribal trust lands. And so I think there's ways for us to do that as well.
Well, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy day. Former Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Arave tuat tavai, which is Ute for today is a good day. Arave is today, tuat is good, and tavai is day. Arave tuat tavai, which is Ute for today is a good day.
In the age of artificial intelligence, tribal nations are looking to use technology and protect tribal sovereignty. Daniel Herrera Carbajal reports.
AI is here and is already affecting tribal nations. That was a common theme among leaders from all over Indian country who gathered at the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law for the Pre-Wiring the Res Symposium to learn about how artificial intelligence is affecting tribal nations.
We have to embrace this, but embrace this on our terms, right? That respects tribal sovereignty and digital sovereignty.
Leonard Bruce, a data analyst with Gila River, said he was of two minds when it came to AI and data sovereignty.
One hand, yeah, it can definitely bolster tribal sovereignty in that if we own and control the data, right, we own and control the systems, it can definitely help us in terms of like data sovereignty. And when we talk about like data sovereignty or data governance, it's about the information, the stories that are told about us, right? On the other hand, like it can also erode tribal sovereignty and tribal governance, because if those stories are being controlled by other folks and they're being told about us and we don't have any internal control over it, then there's problems there.
Data sovereignty is a concept that data is controlled by and subject to the laws and governance structures of the nation, region, or community where it is collected, processed, or stored. Speaking on a panel about building a body of policy on AI serving tribal digital sovereignty, Governor Lewis said tribal nations cannot get left behind.
And we can be left behind, because once we get left behind, we are victims rather than being agents.
Jeffrey Blackwell, General Counsel and Chief of Staff for the National Congress of American Indians, pointed toward history to highlight the importance of tribal nations being included in building policy surrounding AI. He said Indian country was not included in key communications and infrastructure legislation like the Federal Communications Act of 1934 and the Rural Electrifications Act. The Rural Electrifications Act of 1936 provided federal loans for the installation of electrical distribution systems to serve isolated rural areas of the United States. One attendee was taking language and culture revitalization into his own hands. Albert Haskey created a mobile app that helps users navigate the Navajo clan system while teaching Navajo cultural values. He uses machine learning, a subset of AI, to develop apps related to Navajo language and culture.
That's who we are. That's what makes us us in terms of our tribes and our culture, our practices. And it's important to every single one of us, I would say.
While there were many discussions on how AI can be used to benefit tribes, there were still the overhanging questions of its environmental impacts. Tracy Morris said she wanted this to be a symposium that talked about all of AI's impacts.
We started getting comments about why is your agenda not include, environmental concerns. So we actually added a panel in the last couple of weeks.
During that panel discussion, researchers and energy leaders talked about the impacts AI has on natural resources. Data centers that run and host generative AI require vast amounts of water and energy to cool and run. A single ChatGPT query uses 10 times more energy than a standard Google search. Throughout the symposium, one thing was clear: AI is here and is affecting tribal nations.
What I wanted to do was to make sure that we had, if this wasn't a conference about the possibility of AI, about how cool it is and what it can do, I wanted it to be a conference that talked about how it was actually being applied in Indian country.
Your grandkids are already using these systems, as well as like people who are working, whether you're working within your community, and a lot of our members are working outside of our communities. Companies around us are already using those systems. They're already implementing them. So we're having to deal with them whether we like it or not.
For ICT, from the homelands of the Yakima Otham and Peeposh, Daniel Herrera Carbajal.
Sacred Storm Buffalo opened this summer in the Black Hills. I stopped by to learn more about this workforce development project of Wambly Ska Community Development. Wambly Ska means white eagle in Lakota. Take a look. There's a new butcher shop in Rapid City, South Dakota, but it's much more than just a retail shop. Selling meat, soap, and other buffalo products is part of an effort to help Lakota relatives. It's workforce development. Jose Arillo explains.
A few years before, like I said, I was going down the wrong path. I used to party and experiment with all types of stuff, do whatever in front of me, whatever else. But yeah, kind of like useless, kind of. So like Big Chris and what he introduced us to, Sacred Storm and everything, kind of like gave me a purpose, a sense of purpose. I didn't really have much purpose, didn't know what I was going to do or how I was going to grow up or, like what steps to take. But through Sacred Storm, it really put me on the right track. It really did. And I just been on that same track ever since. And I look around at like the people that I used to hang out with, and it's a huge difference between me and them now.
William Bravebird agrees.
Yeah, we all kind of come from that background, from growing up in it to actually being part of it. And that's why this job is become more than it's more than a job. It's a way of life. And so that's one of our biggest things, is holding each other accountable with our sobriety, because we all know what it's like. And if someone comes in with it, and it's contagious, so they'll infect someone else with it, or it'll trigger someone else to want to go off and use or something. So it's a big thing.
Big Chris is Chris White Eagle.
I like to think of all of them as not like throwaway kids like everybody else in society has them. They just need to be redirected. And I think with this project, it's helping us being able to do that.
His son, Chance White Eagle, makes the third generation of men changing the North Side.
My grandpa, Duran White Eagle, he started the drum and dance group, and I was one of his first dancers along with my little sister, Kaylee. And yeah, we started out here. We were dancing. We'd just have our own little powwows back here, and then he expanded. We would go and travel to different powwows, and we got bigger and bigger. More dancers wanted to come in, and we started making a regalia room where people can come in and make their own regalia, or have my grandpa help them make their regalia and show them the way, and just stuff like that. And it just got bigger and bigger from there. Once my grandpa passed away, my father stepped up and kept it going.
Up here, they have like the shelter and stuff that helps the homeless relatives. Like besides that, there's the teen center that we're sitting in right now. Like we do a lot of stuff. Like Wombliska, we're kind of all underneath there. But yeah, we do a lot of stuff. Like this is for the youth, so we make sure they don't go down the same footsteps we did. And for the relatives next door to the church, free meals and clothes closet and everything like that. So it kind of helps in all like the Warriors Lodge, the church, the teen center. You know, it helps all different types of age groups and groups of people.
My pastor, or my Lexi pastor John, he runs like spiritual services for like the Lakota people. So it's not just fully Lutheran, you know what I mean? It's it's a good way. He teaches a lot of good stuff and talking about Tankashla and everything like that. Because sometimes they just think it's just a church and everyone got the idea of just hating them, you know what I mean? And once they actually come in and see that we do different services other than just talk about the white man, you know what I mean? There's just other stuff like that. It's good. It feels good.
The number of groups and organizations of our own people trying to help the other, our same people. You know, there's more of that going on than there was, let's say, 10 years ago. You know, there wasn't no Indian collective. You know, Wombliska was still probably just small, you know, taking care of
drum and dance group.
Drum and dance group, you know, the people that wanted to come and do that much, you know, and it's grown to today. You know, we got different groups and organizations that help with resource, you know, direct you toward resources or give you a place to go, or, you know, like up here to come check your mail for the ones that don't have a place to go. And even right here in the teen center for the inner city youth that don't have good environments to go home to, they got a space they could come to right after school or, you know, during the day and come hang out. And so that's the good things that I see going on here in Rapid City.
From Lakota Oyate Homelands, I'm Shirley Snavy for ICT. Tariffs are impacting tribes in unexpected ways down to ceremonial aspects of our tribal customs and culture. Amelia Schaefer has a story.
Jingle cones are an integral part of the jingle dress dance, a medicine dance that originated with the Ojibwe or Anishinaabe people. The original jingle cones were made out of hand-rolled, chewing tobacco can lids, but nowadays, all jingle cone manufacturing occurs overseas in countries like Taiwan and Indonesia. This means that recent tariffs from United States President Donald Trump have impacted how much it costs to bring these cones into the United States and make their way onto medicine dresses.
Lake of the Woods, this is like the home of the jingle dress where the stories and the creation, everything came out of. So making jingle dresses here is essential for my business.
Sharona Crane is a First Nations Ojibwe artist based on Ontario, Canada, who creates unique jingle dresses and other pieces of regalia for her brand Zaze Gakwe. Crane has to get her jingle cones and other items from the United States into Canada. So after they've already been shipped and subject to tariffs when getting into the United States, they're subject to even more costs.
So buying jingles is I cannot get around it, but the jingles now are $56 per 100 rolled bag.
Since taking office in January, President Donald Trump has rolled out various new tariffs on imported goods, including broad tariffs on products from Taiwan, China, India, and Indonesia, and the removal of de minimis exemptions on shipments from Canada into the United States.
I would honestly say probably before the tariffs, about 80% of it was coming from the US. Fancy fabrics, like I had a direct contact in one of the warehouses in the LA Fashion District where I would order a lot of fabric from, and I completely had to stop that. Like it wasn't worth it anymore.
The move has been done in an effort to try to get United States-based companies to bring their manufacturing back into the United States, but experts warn that could take 2 to 4 years to actually happen, leaving small businesses to deal with tariffs on imported goods in the meantime.
We import from the Czech Republic. We also import from China and India and other various places over the years, but those are our kind of main sources for beads.
Beth Simmons is the owner of Shipwreck Beads, a major supplier of beads on the West Coast based in Lacey, Washington, but also one that frequently travels to powwows.
Every time we import a shipment, we get an additional 10%, and now I think it's going to 15% bill from the customs brokerage when we do the import. So some of our manufacturers have really been trying to partner with us to make sure that it is not hitting our customers too greatly, and that has helped. We also have a lot of stock on the shelf, and so we have been able to absorb some of those increases in the tariffs, but we have had to take some price increases. We're trying to make them as little as possible, but we still have to be able to pay for the beads. And pay all of our employees. We're hopeful that the situation is resolved sometime in the next year and that it won't be a thing moving forward, but we have to keep the lights on between now and then.
And one of the only ways to relieve pressure from small businesses is for them to raise their prices.
With those kinds of prices, there's even fewer people that can afford them. Like, I do feel bad, but there's nothing that I can do without keeping, I don't know, I got to keep my lights on too. And it sucks. And it's not because I'm not trying to take advantage of people. That's just how much things cost. Yeah, those tariffs, they lack of a better word, they suck. They suck.
For ICT from Oceti-Sakowin Homelands, I'm Amelia Schaefer.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ICTnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.